All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
Welcome. Odyssey Bookstore is thrilled to be hosting Mary to celebrate her new collection of poems, The Devil's Fools. For those of you that don't know, Mary Gilliland is an award-winning poet. She's been published in numerous publications, both online and in print, and she's the author of The Ruined Walled Castle Garden as well, which came out in 2020. Tonight, she'll mainly be reading from the new collection with a Q&A afterwards, so save your questions towards the end. And links to purchase both of Mary's books will be in the chat in just a moment. And I'm just going to ask that everybody ensures that they're on mute for the duration of the reading. And now I will turn things over to Mary.
Okay, I am unmuted. Well, yes, can you hear me? Okay, well, I've accomplished something. I want to thank, I've disappeared. Oh, here I am. Okay, I'm spotlighted. And now, thank you, Laura and Annie of Odyssey Bookstore, who are making the Zoom possible for us. I want to thank Codhill Press for selecting this manuscript as the winner of the Pauline Uchmanowicz Poetry Award. And thanks to Ben Altman for the author photo that graces this book, to Jana Potashnik for an incredible design and illustrations that truly caught the poems themselves. Also, my commenders, Aishan Hutchinson, Cynthia Hogue, Heidi Ravin, Mary Crow. I want to doubly thank Mary Crow for being my first reader for 30-something years. Also, all the poets that I've been in a voice in discussing each other's work. So many friends, including my spouse. And also, I want to thank all the places that I have been a pilgrim that appear in The Devil's Fools. You may hear some of that. The first poem that I'll read tonight is actually not in the book. It's my most recently published poem. We've been in tumultuous political times. I wonder if we ever haven't been. Miss Liberty juxtaposes two reference points: that statue with her torch in New York Harbor and the image phrase, the ship of state. And this poem was published online last week in Persimmon, a special issue about the recent challenges to women's rights. It's all the arts, it's prose and poems and art in Persimmon. It's persimmontree.org. Miss Liberty. A lifeboat's slung above the looming sea. Her torch lights the shore with a quiver like green jelly, a tadpole at the center of amok. But it's unraveling, the rough cloth of a monster in the deep with unimaginable weapons. Foot traffic snarls in rope ladders, the struggle for life vests. Survivors will speak of the hand extended to steady a child. Sunbeams hoist metallic brilliance from spikes in her tiara. A sea soft as cashmere wraps the creaking struts above the sunken hull, the lowering lifeboats. Now the book. Here's its cover. She wanted my hearts the same way. From The Devil's Fools. This is also in a very brand new anthology from Anhinga Press, published 2 weeks before the midterms. The anthology is titled Rumors, Secrets, and Lies, Poems about Pregnancy, Abortion, and Choice. This poem is for all the older girls in large families like myself and my sister Helen, who were responsible for raising their younger siblings. And one meaning of the hearts of the poem's title is heart-shaped earrings that the speaker is wearing. She wanted my hearts the same way. She once said of the boys, their equipment is exposed, such a vulnerable way to go through life. She tumbled me the way the waves do sea stones, me, then 9 others, 8 of us full term. Brim of her womb, I sit wearing her ultimate hat, rainable, sunnable, crushable, still like new. The table, silvered wood, bench damp. The line for fried sweet dough, not getting any shorter. A child paws rhinestone at the tide line. 3 in diapers, and me tall enough to help. The rhythm of that house was frantic, tripping on, pulling red wagons, plastic cups. Her emery nails, they were mother's, I can't help it. Lined up, my earlobes notched opal studs. With a stroller at a crosswalk, there was my pebble of a voice. Wait, little ones, until the light changes. Both of my parents used corporal punishment and occasionally were very loud. This next poem describes a childhood experience with my father after I had done EMDR therapy about it. Critical mass disposed of. For years, I heard confusion clap its bell. Audience waiting on my words, choice speech trapped in a splay throat. You weren't quite balanced when you fashioned punishment, a ragged 2x4 across my cotton underpants. I had warned my friend, Presbyterian, she was on her way to hell. Corrected my first chance to pipe our church's spell. Old man, today I cradled pulsars, compassion turned toward me, and talked memory drift aloud. The steady on-off beating through my fingers cleared it out. So it wasn't the easiest start. Becoming a true poet has not been for me a straight road. It's rather been like a slow wander through a forest, always discovering, and that has been a joy. But perhaps the next poem gave me some clues as to why I took a under the radar course through academia as an outsider poet. The poem's called Slip, and I just want to show you the facing page is called Drenched. And so if you're holding the book, there's a reverberation of this little slip outside your eye if you're reading Drenched, which is one of the poems in the book about alcoholism. I'm not going to be reading any of those tonight, nor the ones about love or the long poems or the elegies or the comedies, but many other kinds. Flip. The maker of my asymmetric kitchen bowls regards them seconds. The lip of one curves out, another up. Yet they nest, a set for soup, for stir fry, hot with ginger, on half-lit days when rain astigmatizes sight. Keats fears the clay of self-undoing collapsed upon ambition's wheel. More than a name vanished, ink on water. He knows abandon, a more vibrant thing than mere perfection, more nourishing. bowls rimmed with vines distinctly green, from which droop purple blue wisteria bud or grape. This could be flower, could be fruit, blurs as though through watered glass. One moment, please. Next are some poems that are voices other than my own. And this is not infrequent in my opus. Sometimes it's people that none of us has ever met. But the next three poems, the speakers are from Greek classical myths. Lyre, it's L-Y-R-E, it's spelled like the musical instrument, lyre. And this is the wily wanderer Odysseus speaking. Lyre. Life had, the astrologer said, but one curse. I could not go mad. When I heard the music I cannot repeat, I was halfway home, 5 years into the voyage. Their voices were honey, measure by measure, dropped on the small of my back. I married the ropes as well as the mast, my writhing as ranting a plea as my shouts. Today, I recall not one word. When I beached, I made thanks. I walked home to the face without an adventure to which I was wedded. Proserpine, this is Persephone's comment on being swept away to the underworld by Hades. Proserpine, I fell in with a man from a small country. He stopped on a rainy lane and asked, did I want to ride? My mother told me always to follow my feet, but the fumes that day overpowered my nose. He bit me hard, then nubbed at my love pearl. Red seeds fell from the wound. He says, I ate them. He offered me board if I paid for room among bloodless artistes and ivory heroes by charging his battery 1 or 2 shocks. Time passed and faded. There's a beauty in that. He took up his helmet. I saw he was sightless. I said, let's let it rip. Soot fell about us. Once I'd signed his note that hell could not be improved on. He set me loose for the summer. He'd have slipped me into his wallet if I'd fit. The last one from Greek myths is Nemesis, and there's a couple pages of notes in the back of the book because I'm not sure, how up on things everyone is anymore. But I'll just read you about Nemesis. Originally, this deity dispensed justice as the ruler of order, of the procession of the seasons, of things done at the proper time, adherence to the social rules. In later Greek mythology, she dispensed retribution and became associated with vengeance. There's a bit of natural history in this poem too, natural history of burdock, the plant. It's the one called carduna by the Italians and the Japanese who love to tempore its spring roots. Burdock is one of the most ancient plants on earth. Nemesis. The burdock no one dug for spring tempura or a boast of victory over taproot, leaves out vast and ribbed. Its stalk crests the human head, blossoming magenta. During August, The young burr scratches shoulders, teases clothes. Mercy will vanish as it dries, and the winds whisper a pox on the horse's tail, the neat edge of a lawn. Persistent as shark or cockroach, burdock remembers ferns high as trees, brontosaurus necks lengthening until their pea heads could chew enormous fiddleheads, sharp, cold, or claws sudden in the belly, bringing them to earth. In daylight and darkness, throughout nature's mammal dreams, burdock heard first the apes who walked, sure they would wear the crown. Now we'll cross the Atlantic for a couple of poems set in Britain. Midlothian is it's a region of southern Scotland, and the poem is about Britain's foot and mouth epidemic of the year 2001. The poem contains Adam Smith's phrase from The Wealth of Nations, led by an invisible hand. So at the end of that epidemic, BBC World News reported 4 million animals had been slaughtered by government decree. The actual number of confirmed cases of the disease was 337. During the height of the crisis, the Scotsman reported that farmer suicides were averaging 1 a week. There are several poems in The Devil's Fools about the epidemic. I was on my second residency at Hawthornden Castle at the time, south of Edinburgh. And the castle it's on sheer cliffs way, way above the River Esk, a gorge that's twice as deep as the gorges we have here in Ithaca. Midlothian. Clocks addled, wandering in long daylight to Land's End, where the Esk bends. We skip rocks, pile a cairn of granite, sandstone, bits of glass, pocky curves, striped shards. A river's take from igneous hills where hide, flesh, bones are stilled. On Whitsunday, along the prime meridian, church walls muffle prayer for farmer suicides, for split hemispheres of shepherd sheep. Diggers trench field-long graves. Air transports a relentless slurry. Thistled clearances hold burning flocks, led by an invisible hand, firm as stones that incomers might pitch or cradle in. Townsfolk and villagers roll towels to stuff thresholds, lintels, jams. Holy Island. Off each side of the coast of the Scottish-English border is an island called Holy Island. Iona is on the west, and this one, Lindisfarne, is on the east. You can walk over to Lindisfarne at low tide, but at high tide, it's cut off from the mainland. It's also where the illuminated manuscript that's known as the Book of Kells was made. Holy Island. Am I hearing the split louds of pilgrims bent from hours on the motorway, fingering their maps? The causeway awash. Do these hands nestle in pleasure as twigs stirred by a breeze find the calm of gravity? Are lines in my palms the branches of what I have sacrificed? Twice daily the tide hilling toward dune grass, covers the road to the mainland. Grass, clear page on a still day, a scribble when the gale blows off the sea. The Lindisfarne monks stirred pigments they ground from earth's plants and metals, through the manuscript tracing Jerusalem's news, the tree, the lamb, the vine. Hands cupped on thighs, in a sanctuary unroofed long ago, I stand beneath a thin red arch of sandstone thumbed by wind. Miniature daisies scatter a white toehold. Sound thrums through space to this green place, this clapper in the bell wanting heaven. Lit with radiance, the poem's recurring words, joy, sorrow, glory, are taken from the Roman Catholic Rosary. These are names of the mysteries, the joyful, the sorrowful, the glorious. And someone reciting the Rosary says 10 Hail Marys for each of the mysteries. Lit with radiance. Joy oscillates to sorrow, as a dolphin breathes one element to move in another. As a butterfly eats the plant's green solids when it crawls, the nectar when it's winged. Sorrow fathoms glory as a tree's roots curl irregular in shape and thickness, unsteadying the outline of its trunk. Glory rouses joy, the way a mystery comes close to shadow, or a shoulder leads the knee from ground to space, where curvature saddles the known universe. Joy announces sorrow in the wish to live in many countries, turn all corners, marvel at the streets and watch them. Sorrow ambers glory inside shabby rental houses, motes of sunlight, pollen, shoes well broken in. Here's a reply to all that strict pre-Vatican II Catholic upbringing. My dirty yes to life. At what point now does saying no redeem a girl? The long consequence of Catholic education is not fear of hell or waking late, but that spent agility. When I eat no meat on Friday, no soul exits purgatory. No necking and no petting, nor just how far to go was ever fun among the paralyzing imprint of purloined Hebrew metaphor, lost sheep, prodigal sons. I failed to arrive where manna showered, nor did I strike water from a rock, nor Goliath with one. My faith in miracles runs to the chance, panting, extreme unction, where absolved, I'll nod off without sin. Alongside the flaw that makes loss worth singing, a Philistine inclines over girlhood's shards, hosts of torn love letters dusting the way down. So I'm waving to you from Ithaca, New York, where we had our first hard frost this morning. So I'll end with a poem called Winter in the Garden. And then you can open up your microphones for questions and comments or discussion or requests or anything you want me to go back to or forward from or whatever. Winter in the Garden. When I squat to the spade base, the handle does the lifting. So I see the yellowed body in cascades of loosened earth. With the blind human movement toward the future, my pointer finger tucks the damp sack of her belly. A webbed foot rests on clods of grubs and buried eggs whose hatch will wake her. With the half mew of a cat moved from an easy chair, the toad rebukes me in her dreaming. Okay, so thank you. And I'm going to, I guess, look at the chat. You've all been looking at the chat. Do I see any questions? Well, thank you for all your nice words, everybody. Would anybody like to dialogue? Read an elegy. Okay. Okay. You don't want one about herbs or stuff? Okay. All right. I'll read. This is an elegy. I have 3 dead siblings. 2 brothers and a sister are in other dimensions. And this one I wrote after our first loss in the family. It's from my brother Tommy. Fresh coffee after you are gone. There's studied madness in opening bills after breakfast, signing bank transfers. I clear my mind enough to know a fallen stick of incense won't burn the house. To figure out the cassette's lack of sound, the rasp of its rotation is my error, not the answering machine's. Side A, not B, is the voice, still there. Metallic in the renovated room without its furniture. Some of the phrases are his voice. I'll be here, the abecedarian of 4 a.m. I know, dinner time's the best time. Talk to you later. The manic laugh, disintegration after successful surgery inside the frontal lobe. Pick it up, I am healed. Oligodendroglioma spreads its tree roots in the brain. If I could have work to do, take aspirin and move on, instead of staring at the sad museum pieces that pondering sculpts from love, as though understanding were a place to live. If I could simply talk about the damp closet upstairs, the milky trail of mildew on black velvet, the yellowed dry cleaning tags. Is the number on the scrap of paper 6 or 9? As though knowing would be alchemy. Square 1, hot, bitter brew. Then the nothing that has to be done. For an agitated hour, I bundle one towel about another in a ball. Sort the light fabrics from dark. Okay. Alice Groh wants to hear poems about plants and herbs. I will find motherwort. Okay. Motherwort. So I suppose people that don't know the herb can just click for it. Or perhaps you'll see it as I read the poem. As forest green leaves reverse in wind, dusty silver undersides, veins bulge. Embryonic rings of spurred seeds halt, hands slide, at intervals along the tall, four-sided stalk. Leonora's cardiaca has a Robin Sherwood shine, a slightly darker, slightly danker nature than its fellow weeds. Minute orchids top the taloned seed crowns, frill-pink visors. Whence the fomentative power, plucked, bruised, steeped, to break fever, lift, childbirth cramp. Motherwort, I know quite a bit about herbs, and motherwort will remove congestion. So if you have a terrible cold that just hangs on, you want to make some strong motherwort tea. You also can give birth more easily with it, apparently. And one of the local herbalists sent a very pregnant woman to my door in February, knocking to see if I had any motherwort, which I actually did. And I later met the child. So the child's now a teenager. Okay. I think I should read I want to read a poem about magic, and it's also a love poem. It's called The Fertile Land, and there is a mention of a novel that I love. I really love. My husband and I both love it. We have read it out loud to each other 2.5 times. It's Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and it's about magic. What else? Yes. The Fertile Land. He doesn't say, but my growing thistle does not capture the castle. One each year to thrive where its seed set. This one still branching and still growing in the shade is higher than my husband's head. I promise not to let it go to seed when he flies to a place far away. Then I wait, lying quiet, head bent, the pair of hills rising from the pair of hills rising from flat white expanse, stroking them myself. Thistle's down is silkier and stickier than any other, striking on the stalk, hard to see when fallen. Like the water bug in the cleaver's ointment, the web at dusk across the threshold, the snake that speaks the water of life. Like Susanna Clarke's man with the thistle-down hair, who bewitches English ladies in the wake of the Napoleonic Wars with a severed little finger or a log of moss oak in a casket. Can Jonathan Strange magically retrieve them for his wife and her best friend and place them where they properly belong? His way is eerie as the drift of one strand floating from the mound. His task to pluck before the down is down. Oh, Laurel, thanks for writing to me about that, your brother. Could someone else volunteer to say something? Elizabeth, you're
Yes.
not muted. You can talk.
Yes.
I see you're not muted. I'm going to go on gallery now and see everybody.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, it's someone who writes nonfiction but has worked with memoir, has written memoir, and some of your poems are autobiographical. I'm just so interested in why a writer chooses, let's say, poetry. Do you find that you can say something elliptically in poetry that you could say no other way?
Yes.
That so
I-
yeah,
Mm.
to you, yeah.
I've been when my chapbook won that other award, the previous book, and was published, I knew I had to do something to let people know it was in the world. And so I decided to write that newsletter, that I send out, my occasional poetry newsletter. And I taught prose writing for many, many, many years.
Yes.
And over the course of that, I became sort of incapable of doing it. It was like the reverse, those who teach cannot do. And so
I
it's
see.
been kind of invaluable knowing I have an audience. Some people who get this newsletter read it. Some people write to me, and I somehow it's just all become smoother, and then last month I was on the Best American Poetry blog, and that's prose writing, too.
Mhm.
And I just abandoned prose writing, at a certain point. I decided not to go to graduate school. Yeah, so that's just kind of what happened. And I just got more and more engrossed in poetry and kind of teaching myself how to write poetry by doing it.
Mhm.
And one of the joys I find in poetry is, if I could compare it to music, it's like the difference between, say, Mahler and Mozart. Each of is a very necessary, kind of way of being in the world, but you can have everything in a poem.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that's really what, and that's been my aim as a poet. Not every poet wants to do that, but I don't set out topically. I don't sit down and say, well, now I'm going to write about that. I
Mhm.
just don't do that. It's the words that come first, and I don't always know what the words are saying, or, what they're about, what they're for. And sometimes it'll take a long time. My poems are in different forms. And I never know in advance the form of the poem any more than I know the topic of the poem. But after it gets going, and then a form establishes itself, and then the poem can continue kind of as a poem. And sometimes struggling with the poem, it's like, oh, well, what if it's 4-line stanzas? What if it, or what if it's long line? I mean, it's really, all of that is, there's so many variabilities in poetry, and it's like every word can make a difference.
Mm.
So,
Well, that's a great answer. It makes me realize that there's something very magical in the whole process. It seems magical to me. Well, nonfiction is more, or prose is has all the rules of, capital letters at the beginning. And poetry to me is quite mysterious and magical.
uh-huh.
And that's what you're working with. You're working with the magic of it all, that you don't know, exactly.
Yes, that is so. That is so. I just want to speak up a little for prose. There's certainly quite a lot of magical prose out there too.
Yes, quite so. Well, thank you. That was a great answer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Prose poetry. Laurel wrote in, don't forget about prose poems. There's that too. All right. Yes. Laura, are you?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. You're unmuted.
Oh, I thought I just unmuted myself. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I was going to ask you something.
Okay.
Okay, so I haven't really formulated my words. This is the kind of seat of the pants, but I know we don't like to really think of poetry as like therapeutic, even though of course it can be so many things. So at times it can be that, but during this reading, it really struck me that perhaps poetry has helped you work through a lot of really important life issues. I mean, I'm really getting that from this reading, and I'm wondering if you think that's true, or if it's just how I'm perceiving it.
I think it's very true. Some of those very short poems I read at the beginning took a very long time to write as poems, I would probably venture that the bulk of my poetry is not autobiographical for me. But I kind of wanted to do this tonight because this is the origin reading for this book. And so I wanted to do a couple of the poems that are my origins, Yeah. I have an entire book-length manuscript that is an elegy for my other brother who died, that. And so so I suppose that's a working through of something, but it's also I find it's something else entirely. I mean, I fictionalize also as I'm doing this, so.
And I didn't mean to imply that because there was that element to the poems that you read tonight, that was all that a poem is. Obviously, that would be a tremendous oversimplification, but I was very moved with the way you did approach, issues about religion and having to raise your siblings and your brother, and just so many things that you handled with a lot of really wonderful poetic detail. But it was also
Yeah, thank you. But that's also the gift that when the poem's completed, that is the gift that it gives you. It's like, okay, so now release, that whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Does anyone else want to tune in or chime in? Or
I have one more question.
Sure.
Because I know you're a plant person and
I am.
You are. And can you talk about the genesis of burdock root, the poem Burdock that you read? And yes, can you how did that poem come to be?
When we bought our house, it was a very disheveled house, and so was all the landscape around it. And there were so many burdock, it was unbelievable. Now, this is a great delicacy. My husband's Italian American, and this is a great, wonderful thing that you can just go out in your yard and, dig up some great vegetables in the spring. But it's also, it's just, the stickers are just amazing, and they get so big. And so something very early on had me associating this with nemesis, and the usual, the everyday usage of, nemesis. And, so it's kind of a pain. But then I just got very curious about burdock itself. And I was very surprised to learn that it was around at the time of the dinosaurs. I mean, I didn't know these things, and so there are poems that are about plants, or they're about insects, and part of what the poem is a representation of characteristics of a bald-faced hornet, or the locust borers, or whatever they are. So I like to kind of implant in the poem factual knowledge so people can appreciate other creatures more. I
Yes.
think there's a great underappreciation of the creatures who aren't apes walking around on two legs.
Yes. And
So,
especially burdock. The burdock is much maligned because of those stickers.
it is. But like thistle, the flowers are among the most beautiful.
Yes.
And they feed so many creatures. So yeah.
And Green Star sells roots of burdock long that you can buy them, they're like 8 to 10 inches long because
Huh.
it's terribly difficult to dig up the roots.
That's
But
true.
if you chop up the roots into, 1/2-inch pieces and then simmer them for a while, and then you put the juice in the ice box, you'll get the most marvelous blue-green tonic water.
Really?
It's just otherworldly, the greenish, bluish
Huh.
tea that you make from it. It's
Wow.
very good for you.
Well, this is good to know. I'm so sorry that we excavated and dug up all the burdock. We don't have any left.
Oh,
You could have gone into business.
no. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Alice, were you
I'm just, yeah, about the burdock is very interesting. Is it native? Do you know?
oh, well, if it's not, it's naturalized.
Yeah.
Oh, it sure has.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lovely afternoon today of in our pollinator garden. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it down adjacent to DeWitt Park at the First Baptist Church down there. But a couple of people and I were gleaning the seeds to plant and to carry on. So it's going to be more than just the garden for people to come and look and see
Mm.
what's native and what the insects really like and that sort of thing. So it was sort of magic, and I think I'll write something about it.
Well, good. I hope you
Our
do.
own seeds. Yeah.
So I would wish for everybody that we propagate our plants, our seeds, and our words, and all of the deep feelings in our hearts.
Mhm. The little seeds in our
Yeah.
head and our heart. Mhm.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for listening and being attentive and writing in. I'll have to figure out a way to save this chat. It's just lovely. Okay. So
Thank you so
Annie-
much, Mary.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
all for being here. Okay. So
Bye.
Annie, are you there?
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
here.
Annie's here. I think she's going to shut us down now. But,
Yes.
It's really
Thank
nice
you
to hear
everyone
you,
for
Mary.
joining tonight. And like I said, if you want to order any of Mary's books, the link is in
Jimmy.
the chat.
yes.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
make sure you order the books too.
Yes.
And they have this one too, if you want a smaller book. Okay. All right. Take care, everybody, and thank you again.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye, Mary.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.